Many years ago, on the feast of St. Martin of Tours, who was the patron of the charter house, the Carthusian house that I was at for those years, the novice master took the novitiate, the juniors, into the library and showed us one or two ancient books. And we got to some very early cunabile or printing, the early stages, and there was the life of St. Bruno there. And we had these squares with illustrations in them. There was, according to one tradition, we're not quite sure whether it's historically accurate, it could have happened to somebody else, but it's the kind of thing that would have happened in the Middle Ages anyway. And it was this scene of a man, rather as in today's Gospel, being put to rest. They were there, and the person woke up and said one sentence, Judicatus summa Deo. I am judged by God. And then there was another picture in the series. Accusatus summa Deo. I am accused by God. And there was a third one. Condemnatus summa Deo. I am condemned. And according to one tradition at least, that got the good canon of Rheims, Bruno, moving. Whatever the historical accuracy, as I say, it happened probably in some situation that could be ascribed to him. It's happening also in a different form in our time. I just happened to be looking at this question the other day, evidence that the soul goes on, with a life independent of the brain. It's now factually proven, and if you're that way inclined, you can do a scientific investigation yourself. For instance, by going into an excellent BBC documentary, which is purely neutral, but is following through the study of competent surgeons, and doctors, and scientists, analysing that beyond any shadow of doubt, the life of the soul does not depend on the life of the brain. In parallel, we have quite a few testimonies of cases of people who have been accompanying people at the moment of death or into going into separation of body and soul, but sort of coming back and going off and coming back. And we have some startling cases of this nature. A soul is leaving the body, and from its own words, when it comes to, is going into a horrible area, and the person watching can see it also in the face, and then is coming back for a brief time and going back, and the same is happening again. This is not new to humanity, it's just that we have more means of controlling it and recording it. When only 14 or so, 15 I forget, while still a Baptist, I came across the testimony of Bede the Venerable in the Ecclesiastical History of the English Nation, who in Book 7 gives, from very good sources, He's got it from a person who knew St. Drissel. Drissel died, apparently, and they were putting him to death, putting him to sleep in the tomb. But before he got there, he did the same. He came back and reported. Everyone was frightened out of their wits. But he was given a choice. Did he want to go there into he'd want heaven, or return and bring others with him? He chose immediately to do the latter and spent the rest of his time in great penance. He's now recognized as a saint in England. But this was the bit that troubled me. His guided tour. He saw purgatory. He saw many things, like the effect of the Holy Mass on the souls, which is not, of course, acceptable to a Baptist, but it was there. It was not being invented. This has happened quite a few times in human history. We have this famous case of the knight Tundale. I think he was actually Irish. He also is given a second chance, but this guided tour has come back and had a huge influence over the Middle Ages. Tundale knelt and thanked God that he had escaped from these torments. Who would pay any heed to God, continued the angel, if he were always to forgive a man his sins without any pain of punishment? A man would never need to do any good if this were the case. But those who are sinful and have done no penance, but who are repentant, shall receive no vengeance from God. Now that's the last plank of salvation, purgatory. Through his mercy they shall be saved, and yet their souls shall feel pain for the sins they have committed. Listen to this bit, because it can apply also to us in some stage of our life. Often God will cause a man's possessions to be taken from him. That could actually be not physical, but it could also be perhaps a wife or something, or even a girlfriend, to get us moving. It could also be physical health, an accident or something. I had a novice in Italy who came out with this one day. I was working as a young man in a building site, and this heavy object came tumbling down on my head, and I was in hospital for ages, and it hit me. Is this the best use I can make of my life? I thought, no, I'll become a priest. So often God will cause a man's possessions to be taken from him, so that his pain can be reduced when he gets here. For if a man knows the benefit of poverty and thanks God for it, then his soul shall suffer the less when he dies, and he shall soon say farewell to all pain and achieve everlasting bliss. The church is the hospital for sinners. It's not a museum for saints. It is humano-divine in perfect equilibrium and symbiosis. The divine life working through human channels. But the channels, unfortunately, are human, and they too are in hospital. Looking over the planet right now, one can see the fulfillment of so many warnings in the likes of Fatima, even before, the questionable series of Garabandal, but it's there, Akita, which it actually says the same thing, bishop against bishop, cardinal against cardinal, division, confusion, and on it goes. Now, it's got further up than ever before. And this risks shaking the faith of the simple. My own take is this. I was actually talking to our by now retired bishop the other day about it because I was troubled. And he was calming me, saying, the Pope has been there long enough to weather this storm. So I just took what he was taking on it, but I came back and I reflected in prayer. I have a feeling, but I don't know, but I have a feeling, to be honest, that what's going to happen is something like this. Yes, there will be this business as usual situation, hoping that it'll go away. But then, what well is able to happen is that the secular arm, I mean investigation, backed up by the media, can actually put the highest authorities of the church in such a spot that business will not be as usual. And how that will outwork itself remains to be seen. But, and it's an important but, if it's God's church, this too, as in this little case of things being taken away from the individual, could be precisely allowed by divine providence for what? That it may be the Holy Catholic Church, unencumbered with no secrecy, crystal clear and transparent, that he wants it to be, the bride without any stain. So painful though it may be, it need not shake our faith, but actually make us more serene. I just conclude. This is a macrocosm of the microcosm that we had in Ireland in the 90s, when I was actually up to there in it, in Kilmacront, in County Cavan. I knew nothing about it as a novice, and after vows I was sent to Rome straight away, and I was told to come back unexpectedly, suddenly. They had things to tell me. They let me go back to Rome. One night I was in bed actually, just about to go to sleep, and somebody knocked on the door. It was my next door neighbour, the rector himself. You're in bed, or I'll leave you. No, what's the problem? I've been talking to the Abbot General. Your house is in trouble, and we're concerned about you. This may lead to the stepping down of your abbot. And I said straight away, no way, that never happened. Didn't answer, but I knew he knew how the church worked. So I went over a few days later to the Irish College and talked it all over with Cardinal Daly. And he simply said, is there any way you can stay out in here, where you are, and keep out of this storm? So I followed his advice and was ordained out there and stayed there. But what I'm getting at is this. It had to happen because once something is out, it can't just be business as usual. And the Lord does not want bad business as usual in his church. It is the Lord's church, and it's his problem. And he's allowing things perhaps so that we may get back to what he wants. The hospital for sinners, but in which also all the healers are healed.